And just all right, so if you're coming here and you're expecting to see something other than Drush, you're in the wrong room. You need to go the half mile to the other direction. We're going to talk about a lot of Drush stuff today. I'm Kevin Basarab. I've been working with MediaCurrent now for about 6 months or so. Started here, learned a lot of this Drush stuff actually from Chris Hales, who will be presenting today as well. Some of my backgrounds came from the newspaper industry, got into Drupal when we rolled it out there, came into MediaCurrent, still doing newspaper sites, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good industry to be in, and lots of cool stuff with Drupal. So, Chris, your background there.
Yeah, Chris Hales. I've actually been working for MediaCurrent for almost 5 years now. So I come in at a little bit different. Kevin and I are on both ends of the spectrum here. It took me a while to get started using Drush because it does take some time to actually flesh it out, so it's very efficient. If you're probably getting started, you're looking up obscure commands and options, and you're hey, how does this save me time? Well, that's what we're going to try to help you figure out. We'll show you some cool stuff that you can do with Drush and how to make it really easy to do it. So pretty soon you'll be like, how did I ever live without this?
So you'll notice both of us are on Twitter. Feel free to put your grievances out there. We may or may not respond to you depending on how harsh you might be. Don't forget also the official hashtag, the DCATL hashtag there, so we'll find you later on. And just a couple word of warnings here for you. What we're not going to cover today about Drush, in case you're wondering. You should already have yourself a working knowledge of the command line interface, what that is, how to use shell, logging into your server, those type of things. We're also not going to go over how to install Drush. It can be varying for different operating systems, different servers, different areas. There's lots and lots of tutorials on Drupal.org about it. Including specific tutorials on exact servers of how you install it and get it running on those servers. So we'll let them handle that, and we'll go through the fun stuff today. We will cover some functions that will help and enhance continuous integration and ways you can use Drush to help your continuous integration techniques in your company, but we're not going to get into the actual implementation, just the how and why of how that might be happening. So what will we cover today? A little bit more.
Just so you guys know, I just a few minutes ago added a couple of links to our session description on the DrupalCamp Atlanta site that has a link to a couple of gist files. There's a sample alias file and a sample make file for everybody to grab. And we can explain those to you if you ever have any questions. But those will be examples of fully featured files that you might want to use in your own environment.
Yeah. So we're going to get to those a little bit later as well. We're going to definitely go over today how to make sandwiches with Drush, in case you want to know that. How to download Drupal, install Drupal, download and install modules, clearing your caches, jittering using the make files, aliasing, syncing sites, backups, updates, and then if we have some time at the end, maybe a little bonus round, some extra fun features you can do with Drush as well for other things you can do there. So we'll start out a little bit on making sandwiches, because Drush, in a way, can do almost anything you'd want it to do. It's a PHP file, it's running on the command line. You can program it to do anything you're wanting to do. There are examples included with Drush. In this case, we're looking at an example for making a sandwich. As you see here, I've included the file just because I didn't add it to my Drush installation. But Drush doesn't really want to make your own sandwich until you give it the sudo command, and then it'll give you whatever kind of sandwich you want, including different toppings, all that kind of good stuff. It's a very fun trick of Drush. If you've seen other presentations on Drush, it's a very fun one to start out and see what you can do with it. Next, we're going to get into downloading Drupal with it. This is where you really get into the nuts and bolts of the Drupal development. While you're working in Drupal, you've got your clients that you're working on, and occasionally you might have a bug or a problem that you're looking to solve. First thing you're doing when you're in those issue queues and looking to find your problem or asking for help, some users might ask what modules are installed, what conflicts might there be, and they might ask you, disable your modules. Well, to me, it's a lot easier to spin up a new Drupal install and test a module than it is to disable modules from one. So what I'll do is download Drupal rather, instead of going out and disabling all my modules, and this is great for even when you're starting new sites. Very simple command, drush dl Drupal, stands for download. It'll download the latest project of Drupal. When we made this, it was Drupal 7.15. The security update came out last week, was it? For 7.16, so you'll be getting 7.16 as long as you do drush dl Drupal. And from there, it's going to install into a Drupal-7.16 directory. I always am usually in the directory I want to be in anyway, so the first thing I do is copy everything out of there, remove the folder, and now I've got Drupal into my root directory. The next command is the site install. This is very fun, especially if you're you're making site installs very, very quickly, or you're wanting to script together a deployment opportunity like we talked about with continuous integration. The Drush SI command, or site install, will install Drupal. There's a couple required parameters that you'll run with it. I've highlighted up there standard because it's one that threw me off a little bit when we went to Drupal 7 and using this command. Because in the Drupal 7 version of Drush, or when you're using Drush with Drupal 7, you need to specify the installation profile. By default, Drupal will come with 3 standard profiles: standard, testing, and minimal. Normally, when you're going through and installing Drupal, you're using the standard profile. Testing you don't actually see on the user interface. It's used for the test spot on Drupal.org, and if you're running simple testing on your local machine. And minimal is just a bare minimum site, not many modules enabled at all. A couple parameters that you can go and add to that is the DB URL is another required parameter. This is your connection string to the database. So in this situation, we're looking at MySQL, root. I don't have a password, so if you want to hack my MySQL on my machine. Localhost, Drush_demo is the database we're going to use. The account password, the site name are also 2 parameters that we add in there as well. I always like to add the account pass and the site name just because if you don't, it's just going to spin up I think the site name is Drush, and the password is going to make a random string of characters for you. It'll tell you what that random string is, but then you got to remember it, and no one wants to do that. That's just a pain. The other option that you can add to this that I didn't know about until starting to do this presentation is the DBSU and DBSU password. And what this allows you to do is have a more restricted database user for your Drupal installation on a day-to-day basis. But when you do your Drupal installation, to be able to use a root or a super database user to actually create the database and install Drupal to it. So it avoids you the fact of locking my computer up. Hey, there we go. All right. So that'll install with the Drupal super user database and the database connection. Next, we'll go into some downloading of modules. Chris, you want to go and take some of that side of it, just a quick side of it?
Sure. Well, we'll get into this more in a minute when we start talking about Drush Makefile. But really, with Drush, the most common thing you would probably do on a day-to-day basis is avoid going to the Drupal.org project page, finding your module, downloading the gunzip file, unpacking it, moving it into your site. That just eats up too much time. Well, Drush makes it easy. Drush DL views, context, CCK, whatever you need. Just throw a string of projects there and download them all at once. Best thing about it, well, Kevin will get into that in a second when you're enabling modules, but this little command, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, how much time it saves you is amazing during a day if you're doing frequent builds, or if you're doing updates, which we'll get into that more in a second too.
It's one of the things that users that might have been migrating to Drupal from the CMS that we'll just call the W word, we're not going to mention it, they're used to being able to install directly from the folders and from the interface. Drupal 7 allows you to do that now, but you need to set up folder permissions, things like that, things that you don't really want to do on a production environment. Drush will let you download very, very quickly, get that module in, get it right on your site. One of the best things about it, though, is you downloaded, in this situation, we had downloaded just views and context as 2 modules. We could append, like Chris said, as many modules as we wanted to that. But then the trick comes into when you enable the modules. The next step, obviously, once you download modules, you immediately want to enable it. So if you just went through untarring files, moving it up, pushing it to your now you got to go to the modules folder or your modules directory on the site and enable that module, find it in the long list of checkboxes. It's a lot of a pain. You can just use Drush EN and enable. I always like to, when I do EN, I append the -y command to the end of it. And what that's going to do is give a yes to all commands that it might ask. It's pretty much a standard in a lot of the Unix environments. So it's going to say yes to things. And Drush is smart enough to say that, hey, we wanted to install views UI, and context layout in this situation. Well, Drush goes to enable those modules and says, hey, you don't have CTools yet. do this without that. Do you want me to go get it for you? Okay. Drush goes out, downloads CTools, installs it, enables it, then goes back and enables views, and you didn't have to do a thing. It did all of it for you.
And we want to point out that Drush is very intelligent. So, for example, if you see Kevin's script up here, Drush is downloaded to sites all modules. However, if you have a contrib folder, if you separate your modules out to contrib and custom, Drush will default to your contrib folder. So if you're running multi-sites, as long as you're in the site context of your sub-site, it's going to download to that specific site's module directory for you. You don't have to put a lot of extra into the command line options here. Also, when it's enabling modules, it's going to tell you if there's some sort of conflict, or if you're downloading a module you already have, it's going to let you know. So don't worry too much about it. It's kind of scary since it's a command line utility. However, there are a lot of safeguards in place to keep you from messing up your site.
Definitely. So then we go into the next step in the order of operations here with Drush. Is we just went through and we're downloading modules. We downloaded Drupal, we downloaded some modules, we enabled those. Well, that's still a manual process. If you're starting a site, I'm betting all of us probably use the same 20 to 30 modules in every single site we go to install. How much of a pain is that to do Drush download, start typing out a string of 20 different modules appended to each other, and then go and enable them all? Makefiles are used for that. They're an awesome situation for that use case.
Yeah, the sample makefile I put up was for a D6 site. I just threw it together a few minutes ago, so if you guys pull it down, take a look. The structure of a makefile is very similar to a .info file for a module or theme. It'll look very similar. I think we've got an example on the next slide. The idea of a makefile is not just to speed up rollout, though. It's also to allow you to repeat your build. So I'm coming at this from a development operations side where I look at things I want them to be repeatable. So the idea is take as much of your human input out of it, create a file that's a repeatable file. So you're going to make you need to move your site. Well, instead of just copying everything over, you could just recreate it. Well, you're obviously probably going to miss something along the way. You might get the wrong module version. One thing about a makefile, and you can see from Kevin's example here, is he specified which version of context he wants to use. He wants to use 3.0 beta 4. There may be a specific reason for that. It may be something that was fixed via a patch. And if you're migrating your site or something goes wrong with it, if you didn't have the version number appended here, it would just download the latest context, and that can throw all kinds of monkey wrenches into the works. Same thing with views. He's got it specified as 3.3. A year from now, obviously this may be out of date, but you're guaranteed the site will be a mirror of what it was originally. Also, this will help if you need to go in and compare, like you don't know that your client has changed some modules on you. This is basically a record. It'll tell you what you did versus what's happened recently. Have you got the make?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like Kevin was saying originally, you can, if you're everybody uses admin menu, everybody uses CCK if you're in 6, everybody uses views. So you go ahead and make yourself a Drush make file that you can roll out quickly. And basically the command is, Drush make, whatever the file path is, it's going to spin up as much as you've asked it to. That could be the base Drupal install, it could be Drupal plus modules, it could be just the modules for an existing site you're already kind of set up. Once you've got your site set up and created, you've got your 50 modules all configured and ready to go. Well, you go, well, let me go ahead, I want to save a snapshot of this. So you can use the generate makefile command to create a text file that is a repeatable build file. So this is going to include every module that you've just installed, the very specific version numbers of what you've installed, and you can go back and reference it at any time you need to.
And that's going to provide you, that's the way I like to do them if I'm doing a makefile, is generate it from an existing site. I don't want to go through and find all my individual projects, define the version numbers, define all that in this manifest file. I'd like to use a baseline of generate the file, then go back in and edit those pieces. If it's a specific version number you want to change it to or something of that nature, you can then edit that file from there. One thing to make note of with this is that These are strictly downloading, installing, or downloading rather, all the different modules, themes, different pieces and components of code that you want to bring into your site. This is not actually installing Drupal. It's not actually enabling the modules on your site. That's where installation profiles come in, and that's a whole different session. So I just want to make a note of that.
Yeah, one thing we don't have in here that some of you might want to check out, there is a website that'll help you generate makefiles, drushmake.me, and it's a whole UI that you can build your make profile just point and click. You go through a list of popular modules. You start with D6, D7, and then go through the most common modules that everyone uses, and at the end it'll spit back a Drush makefile for you.
Definitely. And the next thing that leads into then is now you're getting into that continuous integration side a little bit more. You're spinning up sites with all the same modules. You're spinning up sites with the same version numbers. Now, how are we going to start managing all those sites? If we're just looking at one site, we've built it out on our local machine. We've pushed that up to maybe a development server that the developers are all working off of as a standard for the database. Then it might be going to a staging server that the client's reviewing. And eventually it's moving to a production server. Well, how are we going to manage that between all these situations? We skipped a slide earlier about the caching clearing that Drush will do. Drush can run a command drush cc all. It'll clear all your caches. What if I want to clear caches on my staging server? Do I want to SSH into that server, go run the command, and clear the caches there? Or do I want to do it from my local machine and clear the caches in there? That's where this power of alias files comes into play. This, to me, is one of the greatest things that Drush did to my life and my development environment here. And Chris is actually the one that explained it to me, so it's good for him to explain it to you guys as well today.
Yeah, let's see if I can do a job of this. The key to a Drush alias file is obviously what it is. It's a PHP array. It's just a PHP file. It's an array of information you need to contact this remote environment, or even if it's a local environment, it's going to still help you along. One thing you can't see is that there's a naming convention to the alias files. It's going to be typically I always start with my client name. So like modsocket or something like that. I'm going to start with my client name. Then it's going to be, let's see, that's a good one here. Yeah. The file names we tend to make long, so they're very easy to see and understand. Like you can instantly look and go, okay, this is my client xyz.alias.drushrc.php. The reason for that is Drush is very specific. Your files can overlap. Some people in the beginning, you'll have one long Drush file with a lot of different sites in it. It's not a good idea. You'll quickly run into conflicts. Make your files very specific. Like Kevin's here, he's got a couple of environments listed. Drush 1 local, Drush 2 local. Well, most of the time you're working on something beyond your local site. You're going to have a development environment, a staging environment, a production environment. So your file is going to have probably 4 similar arrays listed so that you can contact your remote server to push your files up. So the drush1.local, how you would use this in a command line, you're going to see in all our commands, it's going to be at drush1.local or at drush1.production. This is how you're going to target that specific environment. And we're going to show you a bunch of commands here about doing SQL syncs, rsyncs. Let's see, what do we got up here? Yeah, so this SQL sync, for example, you're going to target the from environment to environment. So I'm going to sync my drush1.local to drush2.local. These are local environments, no big deal, but you've just managed to copy one database to the other. You can do this remotely. So most of the time what you're doing is you're copying your production database down to your local environment. Everybody has a process for that. It usually takes you more than a few seconds. However, this is it. Drush SQL sync 1 to 2 is done. Give it a couple seconds, you're done. Doesn't matter how big the database is. Yeah.
How does that happen? Does it connect to SSH?
Yes. The key here for remote connections, you have to use an SSH key. This is key only. You can't use just log in, so it's interactive. Everything that we do with the syncs is dangerous, obviously. So the file I posted has safeguards in it for you guys to look at. We don't have enough time in this to go over everything because we could talk for hours just about the alias file.
Probably about 60 different array keys you can add to these alias files of different options you can include in them.
What you're doing though is making your main command simple, and that's the hard part about Drush is you're looking up a command. If you look up the real SQL sync command, you have to have a source, a target, the no cache option, your dump file locations, things like that. Roll all those into your alias file, and this gives you just SQL sync. All the other options are defaulted in. That saves you lots of time. And it's one of the things that was very hard for me, especially like trying to start using it, because you what option did I need to use? Oh, okay, wait, let me roll this into the alias file. How do I do that? Okay, so, but be careful in the beginning, obviously. Make sure there is a simulate option. Make sure you try it. See what's going to happen first. And Drush will spit back to you. It's going to say, hey, you're about to destroy this database and replace it with this one. Are you okay with that? Don't use the -y too often.
This is one situation I do not ever recommend using the -y in. If you're running the SQL sync command, always confirm and check that you're actually running to the right location. And it'll tell you the database name. In this situation here, we were saying we're replacing from Drush Demo 2 to Drush Demo. Normally your database names, you're going to be able to tell pretty easily between your local and your production environment. We're going to get to there.
Yes.
That'll be in a couple slides.
Actually, part of my alias file, you'll always have a backup. It's always going to do a dump to your local environment first.
Can you go back and can you generate an alias file?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So just like you can with a make file, you can use generate make file with site alias file is drush site-alias. And then there are a couple of options which I would always recommend you do. Drush SA, and then the alias for the site. If you're within a site, it's @self, then the options are full and with optional, and that'll give you a fairly full-featured alias for that environment. It'll have some extra stuff that you can customize, but that's the best way to start. And then you can build from that. But again, the alias file, once you start building one up, it's repeatable. You're going to use it over and over again. All you're going to do is replace the environment key for your local and your production and everything.
Really what you could even do with that is this is just a PHP file when you're looking at an alias file. It's a giant PHP array. So what if in the instance that Chris just mentioned here, what you can do with that is I've got 4 different environments, and each of my clients are going to be using those same 4 environments. Some little pieces might change here and there, but overall that site name is going to be the only thing that changes between each of these. So rather you can do a find and replace on it, or if you really want to get fancy since it's PHP, set a variable at the top of your file for what you want your local called, what you want your remote called, what you want your staging called, and then nest that within your alias. So you've got your aliases, then your variable name is your key.
You can see we use PHP functions as well. So I've got a date call in here. That's going to name my backup dump. It's going to date it, and I keep it in a dump directory. I go back and periodically clean it out, but from hour to hour, if I need to, for some reason, I can go back and recover what just happened.
So other options we have also rsync. We covered the SQL sync. Well, we've now brought down all of our SQL database from our production environment down to our local, or from wherever we're going to. If we did it the wrong way, we might have went from our local to our production. But, oops. But the other option that we can do is using, if you're on that last slide, if you look at the example that Chris has provided as well, we can then also use rsync and grab our site's default files directory, bring down all those images and user files, so that when we bring our database down, we don't have a site with no images on it and nothing's looking correctly. And we use that with this percentage symbol that you see, and it's not actually on that slide. It's on my notes, not on the slide.
Interesting. Okay. Well, the point about the file syncs, if anybody's ever used rsync, you specify the paths. With the alias file, you can abbreviate those. The rsync command in Drush is very far-reaching. So if you just did rsync like at Drush 1 and at Drush 2, it's going to copy your entire Drupal install over, not just your files. Don't be sure to read the examples. There's an option for pass, custom pass within the alias file, so that's where we get our percentage files that is not shown. But this would be just rsync, Drush rsync, drush1.local, percentage files, which creates a files path, and you would just overwrite the existing files. So basically for this is the same thing. You're pulling down production files to your local so your environments match. You can specify custom paths if you need to, like if you've got a private files directory and a public files directory, or if you have something buried within your site that's like a custom add-on that you've done, you can specify those in the alias file so you can target it and make your commands a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to remember. That's really the key of the Drush alias file.
So in our basic example here, you see we've defined a files path alias and a dump path alias. And in the situation that Chris has set up in this example is that that dump is used when you're doing the SQL dump command or the SQL sync command, one of those two commands. It'll dump that backup and save it first. Files is just our site's default files. We can append as many of those as we want. If there's lots of different directories we want to look at, we can reference all those in.
So here is also where you would use for multi-site. Your multi-site is obviously going to be sites example.com files. So if you've got a complex site with several multi-sites buried in it, you can set up an alias file to make it easy to target any of those. Because another thing about this, you can target the entire set of environments if you want to. So whatever the file's name, so if this was named example.alias.drushrc.php, example.alias is a global that incorporates all of these aliases for each environment. So you could just target add example, and it would spit back a list of all the possible environments that that file encompasses. And so you can run a command, like you could run a clear cache all against your entire site, be that one or a site with 10 multi-site configurations underneath it. So it's a one shot. That alone can save you an amazing amount of time if you're having to go through a multi-site and do a module update site by site. Use Drush.
So the other option that Chris mentioned too earlier, and again we don't have the slide in there for it, is there's also an option that you can add a structured tables key to this and actually skip some of your tables. This is something that I gave this presentation in DrupalCamp Asheville. Was one of the biggest questions that was asked is how can I skip certain tables? How can I not bring the cache tables over if I don't want to bring my user table over, or for some reason an individual custom table of some custom module that you don't want to bring down to your local environment might have sensitive information in it of some sort. You can set that up and skip those tables over with a structured tables key, and that's in the example on the DrupalCamp Atlanta site on our session there, which is already up there, so if you're there you can find it. Yes?
So does that mean that the problem is that if you're creating some of those ancillary tables that are really not part of the Drupal tree, MySQL can copy those as well as the whole database is important?
Yeah, the sync is going to copy everything unless you specify that it doesn't. So the main purpose here would be to speed your syncs along. So if you're copying, if you're going to sync with a remote server like your production site to your local environment, what you don't necessarily want to do is copy all the cache data, all the search data, the sessions, history, watchdog. You're just going to try to trim all those out. I mean, most people probably are using backup and migrate, and everybody that does uses the option to exclude the cache table data. It just reduces your file size, your transfer, and there are a ton of other options you can apply here. You can go in and you can apply compression. Just about anything you can think of that you would normally do with MySQL raw, you can do within Drush and add it as an option in your alias file. And that will, you can do unstructured tables, that speeds things along. Your specific environment may have some quirk that you need to apply. If you're having problems, and you can do it with MySQL, like a MySQL dump, then you can do it in Drush. So,
and that even goes to be the same thing of how you're connecting to your SSH server or to your staging server. There are commands in Drush as well to that same question of what if I need to connect on a non-standard port? What if I'm connecting to a server that's not on port 22? Or what if I need to connect with a certain username or certain directory structure? You can specify all that in this file as well, and the examples will show you that part as well. So this is actually what I was talking about earlier with this cache clearing. This is what I use it more for than anything else, because I'm pulling down sites every so often. But for me, on the developer side, the module side, I'm clearing caches more often than anything else on the site. Make a change, clear the cache out. So I use the aliases there to go to that remote site. If this is set up as a remote environment, I can be on my local machine, run by Drush at drush1.remote for the instance here, cc all, and I'm clearing all the caches. Or I could do cc theme-registry, or just even cc, and it'll give you a listing of all the different options that you have to clear out. And you can clear those individual pieces as we go through. For the gentleman in the front, archiving and backing up through Drush. Again, all this stuff is all through the command line. So if you think of this in your continuous integration and in how you're going to put this together, you can write all these individual commands into one bash file and put all this together and make one bundle of your site for deployment, backups, wherever you want to go with it. For archiving and backing up, the archival side of it, I will say that I don't really use and I don't recommend using it just because it's backing up just your files for the most part. My files are already in a version control system. Why do I need to tarball those up into something else? In a situation here, the archival is going to package everything up. It's going to package all those files. It's going to package all my public directory files. It's going to make a database dump and put that in there as well in this one big tarball. You think about that on a small site that you might be working on, that might be 100 meg, some small amount. Then you scale that up to an enterprise level site. You're looking at a tarball of a couple gigs in size. You're doing a lot of performance issues there just in running your backup. So you want to split that up into individual pieces. So why not at that point do a MySQL dump and strictly run that? If you had the alias files set up, you can run that even easier with your alias key file there. So now you're getting your SQL. Well, if I want my files, I can rsync those down with the alias file as well. If I want the rest of the files on the site, all of my modules and things like that, they're all coming from my version control. So now I've got an entire site backup without having that 5 gig tarball or this giant tarball file. Occasionally it is needed though. It's good to know that it does exist so that you can, if a client asks for, I want everything on this site, okay, here you go. You can back that up and run it that way as well. One of the other big things that Drush goes for a lot of is updating the code on your site and updating modules on your site. This is something that Drupal is very good at telling you that stuff is out of date on your site. All of us have gone onto our site and seen that nasty red message window that none of us ever bothered to style, saying, hey, there's updates available for your site. And how many times have you just ignored that on your dev environment or staging environment, just kept seeing it every day, and never did anything about it? Well, Drush will make it even easier for you by going through and updating it. We're going to go through different ways of doing it. I'm going to first say we're going to go through updating the code only. This is one of the things that I do a lot of times. I like to just update my code first, see what happened there, see what gets updated, then see from there to update my database if any hook update functions that might exist within the module. One of the things as a preface to running these commands is these are something that even though you might have Drush enabled on a production environment, you never want to run an update on your production environment because you never know what's going to happen to your site afterwards. Unless you've made really good backups and you don't care if your site goes down for a couple minutes. Which, is there anyone here that wants that except for on your personal site maybe? So always do these on your dev site with backups made. It'll update just the Drupal core code if you wanted to with a specific option. And if you run just Drush up UPC, that'll update all of your individual module codes. As you can see the example here, everything was up to date, but it runs through and it'll show you how it checked each individual module, what its status was, and then at the bottom it'll go through an overview of what it's about to do. If you use the -y command, it'll continue in. If you do not, it'll ask you, hey, I found updates for these specific modules. Would you like to continue on upgrading those? And it'll go on from there.
One thing about this, sometimes on client sides, developers tend not to turn on the update status module, or they just don't want the client to look at it and see if there's a module out of date. They're going to call them even though it might be an incremental nothing fix. You do have to have update status turned on to use the Drush update commands.
And I believe Drush will also automatically enable that for you when you try to use it. Yes?
How do you update some modules without updating all of them that might be updated?
Yes, so you can append to this command the individual project name. So remember when we did a Drush download, we used that project name. And I don't think I covered this. That project name is always coming from Drupal.org. It's the URL string in Drupal.org. So we've got Drupal.org/projects/views. Most modules are pretty easy to decipher what that's going to be. You can usually guess it. The standard is usually an underscore if there's a space in the module name. Some modules get rid of that space, some don't. Just depends on the situation there. But if you do Drush UPC, that module name, the interesting thing to that is it's still going to go through and check the available updates on every single module on your site. So you might think it's going to update everything, and then at the very bottom when it tells you the confirmation, it'll say there are this many number of updates available. I'm going to continue with just updating X module that you just specified in the command line, and that's the only one I'm going to update. So the next part to that is then updating the database. Yeah?
Just real quick, is there any integration now with like hack modules,
So yeah, the question was if there's anything that integrates with hack modules or anything that'll look for code changes to these modules prior to updating them.
I was going to say there's a ton of modules that integrate with Drush. If you've got a module that you use frequently, I'll use Backup and Migrate, for example. Backup and Migrate integrates with Drush. Diff, you can use Diff. If you've got the Diff module installed, you can use that with a variety of combination of other modules. Hack, for example. And even modules that aren't integrated with Drush, if you have a favorite, it's usually pretty easy to add Drush integration.
Yeah, the example file we gave earlier about the making a sandwich, I believe it's only it's a very small PHP file, and you can there's lots of good examples out there of how to make a Drush integration file. It's all PHP, very easy to learn and do from that situation. So the next step then, once you update your code, would be to update the database. Because usually if you've updated code, you always want to check to make sure that there's no hook update available, if some sort of database update needs to happen. Again, very easy to look at. Drush UPDB is going to update database. I actually always recommend disabling access to your update.php file on your server for public access. Even if you're only allowing it with user 1, I always like recommending disabling access to that and just doing your update databases through Drush. It's a lot more secure. The user has to have shell access to get in there. If they have shell access, they already can do damage that they want to do anyway, so might as well let them update your site while they're at it. But then again, it is on here, I believe, as well, or not. You can combine those two commands into one. If you're really feeling, as Google likes to say, that I'm feeling lucky command they used to have on the search. If you're feeling lucky with it, you really just want to get it done, get the module updated quickly, you can go ahead and take that UPC command and the update database command, combine those into one and run a drush up. Drush up is going to go through, check your entire site. If you added the -y option to it, you're not going to have to do a darn thing afterwards. You're just going to let it run. It's going to check for all the module updates, immediately update all those modules, and then after doing that, it'll immediately update the database of any database hooks that are left to run as well, all at one time.
We should mention that if your site is under version control, there are specific options to use with the Drush update commands. Look at the example file, look at the Drush site, read the commands first. You can really screw up if you accidentally update a site that's under SVN. Yeah.
Git is not too big of a deal. Usually Git's pretty smart about it. I've had no problems using Git with it, but any SVN sites I do, I'm usually actually updating on my own, just because I find it easier to update manually than I do to run it through Drush with
There is
SVN.
an SVN sync option. It works great, but that's another thing that you can default in your alias file per site. So go ahead, if you've got a specific, maybe you have a site still under CVS somewhere. Sure, go ahead, add the options in your alias file so you don't have to worry about it. Then you can just use Drush up like you would anything else. I should mention that some version control, the way the update works is basically Drush downloads everything, moves your stuff to the side, swaps it out. So you may end up with unexpected commits if you use the syncs. with version control. It does this for SVN. I haven't tried it with Git, honestly. But in SVN, if you have like a local sites directory that you do like example.dev for your local environment, Drush will nicely commit that for you, even if you tried to exclude it.
So we actually have a couple minutes left here, so we'll go through the bonus round, lightning round, whatever we want to call it here before we get to a couple more questions. Just some really quick commands that are good to know for Drush and make some of your life a little bit easier. The first one is one that I've always really liked to do, especially in an environment where you're working on lots of different sites. If you're a shop or you're working on sites with lots of developers, you're working on X number of sites, other developers are working on other sites, this other developer asks you to help out on their site. Well, you don't have access to their site yet. You don't have a username on their site. Normally we'd go, hey, I just created an account. Will you please go give me access to your site? Or if you're really feeling lucky, we'll log into the database and create the account and mess around there, and that's just dangerous and nasty to do. Drush will do it for you using a user create command, UCRT. We give it the username we want to give it, the email address, and the password we want, and it'll come back and confirm what that user ID is, as well as the role it gets to create that user quickly and easily. With that, you're just creating the normal user account. You could do that easily through /user. This is just to programmatically do it. The real power comes into running the URL command, which is short for user role. In this situation, I'm giving user role, I'm giving the administrator role to user ID 5. I could also specify the username instead of 5, and just for sake of it, I always like to use a UID. It's just safer that way. So I give that user role administrator. Now I have full access to the site without ever having to go and talk to another developer and beg them for access to their site so I can help them out with it. Another thing I use it a lot for is logging into my SQL command line. We all logged in MySQL from the command line, type in MySQL, find the username, find the password, find the host name for it. Drush will do that all for you. You can use Drush SQLC. It'll automatically take the credentials for your Drupal site, log you in, and throw you into a command line interface from MySQL. Really good to get in there quickly and easily. vset and vget are standing for variable set and variable get. If you've ever used those on your site, you can quickly set them, get them, confirm them all from the command line in Drush. All of our features users out there, hopefully all of you are using it in some way, shape, or form. You can update, revert features all from Drush here as well. It's Drush FU, which we've all wanted to tell Drupal at some point or another, especially maybe while we're using features. It stands for feature update. What it's going to do is take that feature, and instead of what you would normally do in going through the user interface of admin structure features, recreate module, download again, move it to the directory, you can do that all straight from the command line. It'll do it immediately for you. You can also revert them. And the last command is this U command, -U argument that you can add to any Drush command. I just found out about this more recently. Some sites occasionally run into issues running Drush as the anonymous user, and you have to specify to run it as user ID 1. So if you run the -U command and specify 1 after it, then it's going to run Drush as user ID 1 as a super user, and that'll make things a lot easier for you.
Yeah, and you can also use it in testing by trying to run something as a different user.
Yep, exactly. So with that, we've got about 3 minutes left for questions here. And after we finish up today, we want to have everyone migrate their way out to the stairwell out in the main lobby there for a big group picture of all the attendees today. So just want to throw that out there so you remember to go to that. What other questions do we have? Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Yes?
Two servers, do you typically, two front-end web servers, do you typically push to them using like Git and Drush? Do you push to them? No, you wouldn't push to them with Drush. You would push to them with Git, right?
So yeah, the question is, if you have two different front-end servers, how are you pushing to those? And what you can do in that situation is you're pushing your files through Git. But then if for some reason you have say a master server and you're using some sort of front-end system and you've got co-located other servers out there, replicated servers, you might actually want to run Drush in that situation to push your SQL table or your MySQL tables and database out from that master to those separated servers.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways you can do scripted deployment with Drush. It's not necessarily the best way, but usually even an advanced deployment system actually will use a script, and that's often Drush. So
there's one up here.
Quick question just about the back and front
the update? How does like the quickest process way method, or what should you do like immediately to roll everything back?
So the question is, what do you do when you do screw something up using Drush, pretty much, if I'm paraphrasing correctly? Because it's going to happen to us at some point. So Drush is, again, as Chris mentioned earlier, it's very smart about how it's doing things. And what Drush does is every time you run one of these Drush up commands, or one of those commands like that, it's actually saving a backup of the modules to a temp directory. At some location, it depends on how you had installed Drush and where that location might be, but it's going to save that backup. That's one situation. The better situation of making that update is actually you're in version control, you reset back to head, or you revert back through your version control system. The situation there though is if you did run the up and database updates applied, you might have to go through some separate issues to roll back that database. That's where you get into some iffy situations there.
All right, thank you.
Yes?
In a situation where you've got a common database and multiple servers tying into that, do you separate the Drush update of the modules versus the database, or how do you coordinate that in a very complex?
So the question is, if you have multiple sites all serving off the same database, how do you coordinate that update commands? In that situation, Chris might have a different opinion on this. I'm not sure I'd go too much in that server architecture, but I would say you update the code, and then you run the update database one time only, because that's going to update that main server. And if you're updating the code specifically on each server, then it's all going to, that same update DB is going to apply to that shared database server.
Yeah, essentially you can do it that way. And again, you can target multiple sites if that's also an issue. At the same time, you can run your Drush up DB across. This would be a case with multi-sites, for example. Your module insights, sites all modules, contrib, you've updated views. Now you've got 10 sites that are running off that same DB. Doing the up DB to the entire file would take care of all of them at once, essentially. I mean, you'd have milliseconds differences with the updates. So again, with Drush, if you're doing some sort of deployment like that, you can set up Drush to go in, set site offline for all your sites at once, run your module updates, run through your DB updates, then set your sites back online, all within a couple of seconds.
So with that, is there any other questions? One more question anywhere else? Let's see. Did anyone write anything bad about us on Twitter? Anybody? Let's see. I'm very saddened by you guys. You've disappointed me. Now go get your picture taken. No, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate everyone coming out to DrupalCamp Atlanta. And, oh, I'm sorry. That's what I get for doing it right at the last minute there as well. Throwing in an idea right at the end to see what you guys did. We lost the cache clear slide and everything in the mess of things earlier. I'm going through, I'm like, my notes are saying next thing is cache clear, and it's not showing up as anything. Yeah. There's no slide in there for that.
I thought there was when I looked through it.
I don't know when it got lost.
See, there's still 22 slides. Or did it just not make it out of the other one?
I don't see it in this one anywhere. But I guess it just didn't make it from the old one. Oh well, that's what we get for throwing more about the alias into the end. But it worked out good, I think. So. Yeah. Awesome. And people laugh some, so let's see. That's all I always care about. Is, at least people might have a good time with it.